lack of money stabs faith. Generally speaking, faith is very, very difficult to have, especially in the 21st century, where naturally we are driven to rationality, science, logic, technology, but not towards God or faith. But with the coronavirus and with the economy collapsing and people losing jobs and is under the grip of fear, and particularly with no money, it is very, very difficult to have faith. But if we manage to have faith, it's well and good, and it is the ideal condition. But then we have not been in the mindset that humanity had a few hundred years ago, before science, before logic. And now it is very, very difficult to have faith. Now, is there an easy solution for it? No, there is no easy solution. You may get a government check for $1,200 or maybe some other assistance with which we can barely be able to survive without a job. But you can't even go get a job because jobs are not available. And this is the case, what we're going to do, how to develop faith. And I want to give you my own personal opinion. Just it's not my own personal opinion, strictly speaking. It is a way of understanding the world from the point of view of yoga or meditation tradition. And this, according to this tradition of yoga, perception of having money or having no money, or seeing an object or not seeing an object, all are conditioned by the object in contemporary days. But by yogic standard, the perceiver is important. Let me put it in a very simple terms. There is no object, there is no experience, not only object but experience, without the perceiver. Which means your perception, your experience is everything. That's why there is the saying, the perceived is only the perceiver. There is no perception, there is no experience, there is no seeing, there is no object without consciousness, which is the perceiver. So consciousness is so powerful that with the full understanding of consciousness and manipulation of it, you can change what you perceive. But what you perceive is just your consciousness. And our consciousness is already very, very object-oriented. independent of consciousness, and this is our collective state of mind. It is object-oriented perception. And with this type of consciousness, it is very difficult to have faith, because everything is dictated by your bank account, whether there is money or not, your job, whether you have a job or not. And that is very important, and not consciousness at all. Because there is no consciousness studies. Although now quantum physics is saying that you collapse your consciousness into matter. Your perception collapses the waves into particles. This is quantum physics. So everything you see is consciousness collapsed, waves collapsed into particles. This is also the teaching of this particular yoga called Vasishta's yoga. This is the yoga that Vasishta, this great teacher, taught Rama, the avatar, when maybe hundreds of thousands of years ago, during a particular yuga, a different yuga, prior to the yuga where Krishna lived. And how old is that? Nobody can precisely calculate. But during that lifetime, during that yuga period, and this teaching was available, I thought I would talk about it. At least you can understand the concept. And this yoga is explained better with an example, with a story that Vasishta the yogi tells the avatar Rama about a queen. The queen saw her husband dying, and he is dead now. She cries, and she doesn't know how to comfort herself. But she had the ability to call on an angel, Saraswati, goddess. And the goddess comes, and then the goddess asks, "What's the problem? Why are you crying? My husband is dead." "Who said he is dead?" "Yeah, here is his dead body." "I see. Now, why don't you gather some flowers from here and then put on the dead body and come to me?" So he goes and puts the flowers on the dead body, and then comes to Saraswati, and Saraswati touches her third eye, and the queen loses her consciousness, and then she's transported into a different reality in which she is not even a body made up of flesh and blood. She has a light body, and then the goddess also has a light body. And then with that body, they both travel into space and then come to a different world in the space, a galaxy, maybe heaven. And then he shows the palace there exactly as it is in this world, on the earth plane. And then he sees the husband, the king there, and he's still a king there too. And she sees also, her name is Leela. Leela also sees herself also present there with the king. What is this illusion? What is this illusion? My husband is dead over there on the earth plane, and he is alive here. How does that happen? Which is true? Is the dead guy is there lying on his bed there? That scenario is real, or what I see him living, and I see his court, the ministers are all there, and which is real and which is unreal. She is confused. And then she asks the goddess of education, the Saraswati, what's going on, which is real. Then Saraswati tells her, you go and look at yourself in the mirror, you see a reflection of yourself, which is real, whether you are real or the image is real. She said, I am the real, meaning the body is real. I see. And then, and it's a long story, I'm not going to the detail because I don't have the time to do it. Then uh, she tells her, okay, wait a minute, I'm going to take you to another place. And then there is a yogi in the Himalayas meditating. And he's frustrated, roaming all the time. This is not a good practice. I wasted all my life. Because he happens to look at a procession going down when he looks from the mountain. This is the king celebrating his birthday, dance, music, and wine, etc. This is life. I roamed all my life and ruined my life, and my family is suffering too. So when he thought this, immediately he died and became a king. And the wife also died, and then she became the queen. And the king who died is really the yogi who died and became a king. And the children are there. This Queen Leela is able to see the children and remember them in her life, because it was so quick, and she could see the children and just remember. And Saraswati explains to the Queen Leela, everything is just thought forms. Everything is just thought forms. And this guy he resented his life and wanted to become a king. And because of his meditation power, he was able to get rid of the body and then be born and then become a king. And he died now here. And the reason why he died here was he was bored being a king. He was bored by being a king, and he didn't value this world at all. And there was a war in the country, and he was killed. Why? Because he said it's better to die rather than, win the war and then continue this life. He wanted to end it, and then the other king killed him. So then nothing happens unless you create that reality. And this is really the truth if we study human consciousness. So in my opinion, all these are happening because the earth plane is now going through a transformation, uh, everywhere, all over the earth plane. This pandemic is teaching something. For us to evolve and see reality as only a perception of your own consciousness. You see poverty, you see death, you see relationship, you see sickness, your health, All these are self-created by your consciousness. And that when you created in objective life, object-oriented life, and that object is also an illusion. And this is also the uh, idea of or concept of Einstein also, but not from the point of view of consciousness, but from the point of view of physics and mathematics. He says that the whole time, the whole perception, the world is an illusion, but he called it as a persistent illusion. And that is what you see. Although mathematically, physically, it is not there, it is just an illusion, just as time is an illusion. Time, past, present, future are all on illusions. This is science, and what I just spoke about Vasishta's yoga hundreds of years, thousands of years ago, and his philosophy is mysticism. I wouldn't say just philosophy, but mysticism, mystical experience. Now, if you begin to look at everything as just a creation of your thought forms, which you can do, just pull your consciousness uh, back to its origin. You do that by looking at every thought that comes to you as just creations that you created in another lifetime. And there you are seeing them just floating thoughts. In other words, every thought that you have is not something that you are thinking at this moment, but you thought at a different time, in a different lifetime, and they are coming to you and you are experiencing that, and then you think they are real because you attach it to your ego, and then you give reality to it. Part of enlightenment, at least according to the Buddhist tradition, some of the Advaitic tradition, they see that whatever you see is not real. They are thought forms. And you are beyond the thought forms. You just begin to witness everything. Because you are so dependent on your mind, on your ego, and there is no reality other than your mind, other than your ego, other than your senses, you are lost in this world. So if you can somehow escape this illusion, which the mystics accepted, which scientists like Einstein accepted, then there is going to be a total liberation. A total liberation from the body, from the mind, from what you create, collectively, individually. Then there is uh, a new civilization, a new psychology. And that psychology is much more uh, uh, desirable, because in that reality, you create your own reality. You are not just carried away by the object consciousness. The object, as I said, the perceived is the perceiver. The object exists without the subject, without consciousness. Now there is this, let me say, this is a book here. Can the book exist without my mind? It cannot. How? I'll give you an example. Now I am sleeping. I'm very deep asleep. Somebody comes and shows the book to me. Will I know? No, I won't. Why? My senses are not there, my eye is not there, my mind is not there. But when I am up, it is there. Why? Because there is a relationship between the two, between your mind and perception. So the perception uh, is not dependent on object. The object is dependent on perception. And this is a matter of evolution. If there is a king or a Congress and Senate who all subscribe, the scientists all subscribe to this human evolution project, which is a very, very dear to my heart, that all of us can be liberated from the tyranny of the senses, the tyranny of the mind, and we won't be slaves to object consciousness. And unfortunately, this is just speculation now, but what is real is just the objects, money in the bank, and that causes a lot of problem. Now, I know it is a lot. It will take a lot of time to train your mind. The first thing that you do is to watch your thoughts and watch your thoughts, and they are not real. The thoughts are not real. These were some aberrations from the mindset that you had in the past in another lifetime, and that comes and haunts you, and you unfortunately take them as real. But the only way to be liberated from the thought forms is just to pull yourself back and then observe them totally as thought forms, and you have nothing to do with them. Every time a thought comes and bothers you, just do it. At least the psychologist will accept it. Well, I can accept it as a coping strategy, coping mechanism. Otherwise, something is very bad, and loss of money, loss of relationship, loss of health. I can try that, but even that is hard. But at least if it works, at least somebody can use it as a coping mechanism. Other than that, there is no real reality to it. This would be the point of view of a psychologist. But to me, it's 100% real. It's 100% real. See everything as just total illusion. You will see the liberation. And you don't need any money for that. You will be totally liberated. There won't be any fear. There won't be any anxiety. But then the ego kicks in, the senses kick in, and then the memory kicks in. All these things create such an impact on your consciousness that you are victims. So again, your faith itself is very weak now, and the lack of money makes it worse. And one way of just to get out of this feeling of sorrow and pain is just to own your own mastery, the mastery of consciousness, which is your real self, and then nothing will disturb you. And you know that whatever you create is your creation. Then when you are at that witness level, from a point of view of nothingness, then if you want, You can create something by bringing a thought. And that thought, without having to wait for years to manifest, it will manifest immediately. Because you are that's exactly what happened to the yogi who repented that he meditated all his lifetime. Instead, he could have become a king. And when the thought came, and he manifested it and became a king. And that is the reality. So it's at least interesting for you to look at it from a technique point of view, using it as a technique. Just don't pay attention to your thought as real. They are just phantoms walking in the mental sky, and they are good, they are bad, they are painful, they are joyful, but you are not disturbed by them. You are not disturbed by them. And that is what I wanted to share with you. And I pray that God will bless us, the universe will bless us with a change of consciousness in which only bliss from beginning to end is the reality. And that is enlightenment, and that is what we are all worthy of, and we all collectively pray and create a consciousness, a world government where the, the government, the scientists, citizens all join together and completely change our uh, behavioral perception and then live a life of joy and liberation. God bless.